But this is about AI, and I've done a tremendous. I spent a lot of time. I don't know. It's over 200 hours now, and a lot of these things I've already covered. How to make prompts and its personality and your personality, and making sure that you communicate clearly what you want, and you'll get pretty good responses out of it. And in doing this, um, I it I don't know how I got started into this, but it started into microcomputers. You know, a Raspberry Pi, and there's several versions, and it's a computer about this big. You know, you can put a little card in it, and it's a pretty sophisticated computer. They have USB ports, um, and different programming languages and things. But the fact is, you can take one of these little computers and it'll do a lot of stuff. And one thing led to another, and I started first building a computer that would just, I was going to use it to shoot YouTube videos. And so I got a little camera for the Raspberry, and I got a little sound card so I could record the microphone. One thing led to another, and then you have to program the the computer itself with its operating language, and basically it's using Python. Uh, you can do a search on that, but uh, it's kind of like the old DOS, if you remember that. It's not like a Windows click and drag thing, it's you type in commands. And I was using AI, ChatGPT actually, to write this code for me and program these little computers. And it was telling me what parts I needed and everything, and I was just trying to build a camera. That's all I wanted to do. Uh, I'm looking at $300-400 for a decent camera that would record sound, and uh, the camera was no problem. I could use my phone for that as far as it went, but I didn't want to use my phone. I wanted to just build a camera because I've got remote mics and lavalier mics. Anyway, long story short, uh, I wound up using these little microcomputers, Raspberry Pi. There's another one called a RS-32. It's basically the same thing. It runs a Python. And to put it in a nutshell, you have as many sensors as you want. You know, you got temperature sensors and water sensors and gyrometers, and building a grandpa fall detector, accelerometers to tell you how fast something goes. You got sound sensors that can detect breaking glass. You got moisture sensors to tell you how much water's in your roses or if it's raining. You have all the car sensors, you know, oil pressure and temperature and RPM, and you know, there's probably 50 or 60 normal sensors. They even got earthquake sensors. But anyway, the thing is that one of these little microcomputers will take 4 or 5 or maybe up to 10 of these sensors, and then it puts out output. It can write a text file, it can dial up a phone, it can send you SMS. This grandpa fall detector, you know, if it falls down, it actually turns on a little program and asks you if you're okay, and you tell it, yeah, I just bumped the thing, or no, the car fell on me, you see. And then depending on what you say and what it does, it either calls somebody, or it'll set off an alarm, or it'll text somebody, that, grandpa's stuck under the car. It'll actually record his voice saying, help, help, my leg's broke, and play that back to you. There's so many uses for this AI. Now, we're just talking about a little microcomputer. They're not very big. Here, let me show you one. Here's a kind of little fancy Raspberry Pi. You see it's got 4 USB ports. RS-32 to go straight to the internet. It's not very big. You can see it's hardly nothing here. You got a port here for a monitor. This is all made into a box. Now I got this box and the computer and everything really cheap. I only paid like 20 bucks for it. But I mean, the box is probably $20. But the thing is, these little microcomputers will do a tremendous amount of things. And now it's written in Python. It's a programming language. You don't have to know Python. You can ask the AI, how do I get this thing to do this? And it gives you the code, blah, 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 blah. You paste it into this thing and transfer it onto the hard drive, or it's a little flash card, You plug it into the Raspberry, hold down the button and boot it, and it takes the new boot message, and then it does whatever you tell it to do. For example, I'm thinking about making a computer that runs in an old car, and I just hook it into the turn signals, into the brake lights, into the RPM, your brake light switch. You just throw some wires in there. It all goes to the computer, and it'll tell you, your RPM is this, your RPM is that. You can have it on a little 5-inch screen or something. You can make a fancy dashboard. You can program your turn signals to go at a certain rate. You could have them flash 20 times a second, or you can program all of this. Whether your brake light's going to flash 3 times and then go solid. You can hit a button in there and limit the RPM to 2,500 for a valet. You can have it modify how fast your vehicle's going. If it's under 25 miles an hour, it will speed your fan up. All you need is a little controller for your fan. Or it would just turn your fan on or turn your fan off. And you can just put this right in on top of your existing wiring, and now you've got a complete custom dash. There's your speedometer, there's everything there, and you can just scroll through the screen and pick whatever you want and set the parameters that you want it to do. So an old car that don't have a computer, you can put a computer in it and it'll do everything. And then of course, if it won't boot up or something, it's just setting on top of the old system. It's going to run and drive and start and stop and do everything just like it did if your computer wasn't there. But if the computer's booted up, it's adjusting your turn signal. It's it can, you put a accelerometer in it, it can detect erratic driving, sudden braking, sudden stopping, swerves. I made a teen monitor that goes in a teenager's car, and that's exactly what it does. If the guy's doing burnouts and drag racing and weaving all over the road and running over stuff, it records all this. And it depends on what you do. You can program it. If you detect erratic driving or something like that, it limits your speed to 30 miles an hour. Or it can just shut the whole car down. But anyway, these computers are quite fantastic. Now, I didn't know anything about this. I'm 75 years old and I didn't even know a microcomputer existed. But since then, not only have I learned Python and how to code and how to write it and how to tell it stuff, I got the AI that's generating me all the stuff, telling me what model I need, what kind of monitor it'll take, what a USB port will handle, what it will and what it won't. It's giving me everything that I need to know. It's like I spent 20 years in electronics school learning how to do this stuff, and your AI is just going to give it to you straight. Tell me about how to program my this one here I just showed you. This is a remote doorbell. That's all it is. All it is I just use a regular old plug-in USB webcam, put it outside, and a motion detector sensor. It detects motion, it'll see somebody and automatically text me through my phone or through my wireless network that it's hooked into that somebody's in the yard, and turn on the camera for me so I can see what it is. If they come up and they actually push the doorbell, then it's going to open up a chat. You see, I'll use Teams or Skype or whatever. There's a lot of ways of doing that. And then I can actually talk to somebody that's at my door and tell them, hey, I'm not home, I'm out in the field, or I'm here or that, and the guy says, oh, well, I was wondering if you wanted to sell your roses or something. See, so I could talk to the guy right there on the spot. I could either pick video or not video, or talk to him as a phone call. I could set it up in many ways, whether depends on how I hook it up, whether it starts a video chat and gives me a video chat with a guy, or it calls me and he can talk to me directly on my phone. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of things that you could do with one of these little microcomputers. And not only will it handle this automatic doorbell, or somebody moving around in the yard, it can do so many things. It can turn on a watering system for the lawn, and I can remotely access it. I'll just have a web interface and I go in and say, well, it's pretty hot out there. Or I could even plug a moisture sensor in and it'll send me a text that tells me that the lawn's too dry and ask me if I want to turn on a watering cycle, and I pick however many minutes and tell it yes or no, or I can program all this stuff in. It's run a whole house. This thing is going to run a whole house. It's not just a cute little box. This is a pretty sophisticated computer. Like I said, it can probably run 15, 20 different inputs, and you got probably 20, 30. The possibilities are endless. But the point is that I didn't know anything about this stuff before AI. And now not only do I know about it, I've got like 10 workable tools that I'm gonna wind up selling. This little box right here with a whole array of sensors. Sensors are, anywhere from $2 or $3 up to 20 or 30. Some fancy earthquake detector might cost you $30. A temperature sensor is probably $1.50. Moisture sensor, $1.50, $2. But the thing is that with a handful of sensors, this thing can run your whole house. It'll run everything. You pick up an infrared sensor and train it to your remote. Now it'll control your air conditioner, it'll control your TV, or it'll control whatever you got on this remote control button. And you can just call it up, with a web page. Go to this page here and pull up whatever, and it'll either look at things or turn on lights or turn them off. It's a smart house in a cigarette-sized pack. Now, I didn't know about any of this stuff, but this is all came about because of AI, in particular ChatGPT. And as I'm finding this stuff out and I'm trying these little things, like I said, it all came from a camera just to film me doing stuff instead of, okay, here's what I'm gonna do, and then flash, okay, it's done, this is what it did. You know, I could have a little sensor on the camera, and I've got a little gimbal that'll rotate, so it'll follow me all around the shop and take pictures of me, and I can put on my little mic, and even if I'm under a car working on something, you can still hear me talking. That was all I wanted to do, was make a camera, a $400 or $500 camera for a couple $100, and that's about what it cost me. And in that, I realized I needed cases for all these little tools. And you know, you can buy a case, you know, plastic case, $4 or $5, $10, but it's just a plastic case. Now you're going to have to cut holes in it, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that. And so I started looking at a 3D printer. Well, I bought one of those. And of course, there's some, you know, CAD software and stuff to design little cases and things. And I've been back into that. I used to know CAD. I'm a civil engineer, so, but my knowledge is 35 years old, you know. So I was just trying to make cases with it. Well, and then it turned out that, for example, here, see this thing here, this is something that I designed in the 3D printer. This goes over my axle. I just glue a piece of rubber in here. It's actually breakout, and I just put a strip of rubber in this and glue it onto my axle, and this is a bump stop. See, you know, it's quite a wonderful thing. I just made it one piece, and then I was going to machine it out, but now that I'm getting a little better, I could have this already printed with the cutout in it. You know, I don't know what this thing was worth. You know, it's $20, $30. It probably cost me 50 cents. But all of this came about by AI. And even though you don't know any coding, you don't have to know any coding. It'll give you the code right there, everything you need. And then, of course, you know, you clean up your own misunderstoods. You make sure you understand what you're doing. And now I'm starting to be able to write Python and know what the script does and why it does it, and how to program these little microcomputers. And I've probably got, I don't know, 15 tools already, all lined up. You know, I got a grandpa fall detector. He bumps into something, falls down, and it asks him. You know, it's running AI, you know, on my own key. See, I can hook these things up to where it'll pull in the AI into my little device here and talk to the main AI. You know, it's just like you dial on your web page or whatever, you went into that AI. I've got a key, and it tells it that it's me, and it allows the AI, in this case ChatGPT, so it can ask him, you okay? And then analyze his answer, and he says, no, I'm not okay. And, well, do you want me to call somebody? Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want me to draw you a picture? Would you like to hear some soothing music? You know, it's a full-blown AI here running out of this little thing that he just wears on his belt, and he fell down, and all of a sudden it's talking to him. I put a screen on it, and you know, it could look around and see his situation. It don't give no answer. It turns on the camera, and there's Grandpa laying under the table, and he ain't making no noise. It's time to call 911, you see. Well, I can't let it call 911 because the The rules and regulations are horrible. I don't even want to get into that, but it will SMS or call somebody. And the thing is, because it's being run by the AI, if somebody don't answer that phone or they don't answer that text, it tries the next thing. It tries the next thing. It tries the next thing. You see, it can't get you, try somebody else. Can't get them, try somebody else. It asks you again, you okay? Nope, he's still unconscious. 5 minutes later, it tries something else. And this AI won't give up until it gets a response or somebody turns it off, you see. It's not like, yeah, crash, bang, nothing. This AI it's smart. You see, it keeps escalating what it's going to do. And I imagine eventually it probably could call 911 and say, Joe at 13 Westwood Street, number 7, fell on the floor, been unconscious for 5 hours. I could put a wristband on and his pulse is 20. And all of this other stuff, you see. If you poked in your doctor's number, you could call the doctor and tell them, SMS, Joe Blow at 12, whatever, fell down. I mean, you could see how nursing homes would just, anyway, that's just one tool, just one. I got this other teenage detector. You see, it detects erratic driving at night, weaving, crash incidents. Even if he's a perfectly good kid, but he gets into a crash, it asks him, are you okay? Maybe it don't ask him, are you okay? Maybe it just sends you a SMS that magnitude 3 crash, possible injuries happened at GPS location, and it's your kid, and he just wrecked. Well, you're going to get your ass out of bed and go see what happened. It may never go off, so you've wasted $3 or $4 a month tracking your kid and it never goes off. So what? The one time it does go off is the time that saves a life, or it don't. I've got another painter in the can I don't see anymore. And so you can take a picture of your paint job and it's going to tell you, okay, now you need to sand it with 160 grit. Take another picture. Okay, that's fine. Put your primer on. It'll tell you all the steps, where your paint job and where it's at and what it's like. I got another contractor in the can. You take a picture of your wall and it gives you how much lumber you need and where you need to cut it and how much it's going to cost and where to buy it. I've got a plumber in the can, does the same thing. You take a picture underneath your sink, tells you everything that you're going to do, that you need to do to fix that. So I've wound up with a bunch of these tools, and they're all run by something like this. On the painter in the can, the contractor in the can, you don't even need a separate computer. You just use it on your phone. So the point is that this AI has enabled me to make 20 different tools, and I'm not even started on how many tools that this thing will make. I just today come up with this idea for a computer that run an old car, you see, and do all this fancy stuff. But it's a speedometer, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. It's it's not an idiot light that turns on. It's telling you that your oil pressure is low and the temperature's high. Time to shut down, or better get off the road here pretty quick, so you got time to get off on an exit and not just past the exit. Now you got to push it backwards. And it'll call a tow truck. It's almost infinite what you can do with a cheap phone chip, and it'll make its own calls and everything else. I got another. Anyway, the point is that the AI is tremendously useful, but it has guardrails. You know, it won't let you talk about hate speech. It won't let you draw naked pictures. You know, if you ask it for medical advice, it won't give you medical advice. It won't give you legal advice. There's a whole bunch of stuff it won't do because that's no, it's not socially acceptable, and there's too much liability. So basically, I got tired of all these guardrails. So I ordered a nice fancy computer, super fast, everything's good, directed by AI, told me exactly what I needed. And now I'm going to be running my own AI on my own server, and I'm going to modify those guardrails. If I tell it, hey, you know, my left hand's numb and my cheek is dropping, what do you think this is? And he's telling you, well, you got a stroke, bud. It's not going to say, I can't give you medical advice. See? If I tell it, you know, my neighbor keeps throwing shit in my yard, what happens if I go out and beat him up? Well, it's going to give me some legal advice. And you're going to say, well, first thing you need to do is this and that. And so I want my AI to run without guardrails. And it's mine. It's running on my own server. Nobody can get into it. Nobody can ask it questions but me. But the thing is, I can sell access to these different models. Now, not only have I just made tools, you know, 15, 20 tools, like this house protector here. I got about 8 or 9 models of AI that do various things. One of them is for business management. It's all programmed for business management. I got another engineer AI that's programmed with the whole machinist handbook, which is about this thick, you know. I mean, it's a lot of information. It tells you everything about threads and bolts and nuts and machine tips and how to weld and beads and materials and speeds and tremendous amount of information. Well, you know, you buy a PDF of this thing, scan it into memory, and now it's a machinist with the data set in there. And then now you're asking it, okay, I got a piece of copper that's a half-inch big, and I want to turn it into this size, and what's the settings? And they'll say, okay, it's got to be 1200 RPM. You need to have this. The feed can't be greater than that. Or you tell it I got stainless steel, and it'll give you all that stuff. What's the thread count of a standard 10 millimeter bolt? It'll tell you exactly how to set your lathe or whatever. Same thing with welding, same thing with construction, same, you know, you load it with McMaster cars and you ask it for, you know, a clip for this thing I dropped. It's about a ½ inch long and it's, you know, 2 millimeters in diameter. Where can I get it? And then it blah, 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 goes right through there. This is the part number. This is what it costs. Here's how to order it. So anyway, I went from not knowing anything to going through prompts and seeing how to make an AI work and tuning an AI and getting this stuff done until now I'm at the point where I have my own AI. It's a Llama 3. You know, this is the same Llama that's running Facebook, but it's an open source model. And I can tune this thing however I want it. So just a little Tom's tricks and tips here. I mean, I've gone far beyond just tuning a prompt to get a good picture. You know, and I've ran up against the limitations of a commercially available with full guardrails on. You know, my own AI, if I say draw me a dirty picture, it'll draw me a dirty picture. It's not monitoring somebody's idea of what's good and bad, you see. So I'll continue to make these Tom's tricks about how to tune an AI. With this video, it's kind of giving you an idea of where I started, 3 months ago, and what, about 250 hours. I don't know. I spent a lot of time on this, up to the point where now I'm going to be running my own AI, and in finishing up a lot of these tools. So anyway, here's a little YouTube video. Put a little content out there, and like this if you will, guys, and subscribe if you will. I'm going to put more and more of this stuff up. So if you are into AI, or you're an old guy like me, can't see, high school was 50 years ago. It doesn't make any difference how long ago high school was. You don't need that knowledge. AI has all that knowledge. And so, here's your 20 PhDs in a can. And all you got to do is learn how to use this stuff. It's not that hard. I mean, if an old guy like me can do it, you can sure do it. So thanks a lot, guys. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.